What are you two talking about?
Oh, nothing. Just the end of the world.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Pods the Watchmen, your weekly companion podcast to the HBO series. I'm Grant.
I'm
and
Clay.
Along with me, Clay.
Oh, jumped in there. Jumped the gun.
I feel like I already looked at your Donald Trump-esque notes that are going on here, and I'm not sure what's going on there.
My reading notes.
But folks, we always want to welcome you to our podcast. We are going to be discussing episode 6, This Extraordinary Being, and we're going to be doing a breakdown. We are coming on to this discussion an hour after the episode finished airing here Sunday night. So we're fresh on the heels of it.
Yeah.
This is always going to be a first impressions. We'll probably miss some things. A lot of things are going to be hot takes, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But among those hot takes, we will, of course, give our hottest of takes of this episode. But before we get into all of that, I did just want to say, if you guys are checking us out on YouTube, we do a live stream of this episode, and you guys can go ahead and subscribe. We would appreciate it. We'd love to also see your comments. Please go ahead and tell us what we got wrong, what you guys are thinking of particular theories. If you guys have any of your own, we'd love to hear all of that kind of feedback. So please just go ahead and lay it on us. Additionally, we are on Patreon, patreon.com/WhoPodsTheWatchmen. There you can go and help support this little show. We are an independent, self-funded little project here. So anything that you guys can do to help support us, we do greatly appreciate. We take that money and pay for hosting costs right now. And yeah, if you guys want to do that, patreon.com/WhoPodsTheWatchmen. You can make a per month pledge. And we do try to do little bonus, we'll do journal entries occasionally. We'll do little secret podcasts just for you guys where we'll ramble about certain particular theories. So yeah, we try to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And additionally, I want to say we had an exclusive interview this week with the writer of episode 5 last week, Carly Ray, who is also the co-executive producer on the show. She was fantastic.
Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
It was lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, she was really gracious. Her time is obviously really valuable, more valuable than ours.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Yeah, it was great to kind of get a behind-the-scenes look and talk about not only Watchmen, but also her previous projects, which are just as impressive. So.
Right. And if you guys want to go check that out, of course, subscribe to our podcast. It'll feed in there, or it's on the website. And we also wanted to thank, we got a new patron this month, or this week, James Worm. Welcome. Happy to have you. And we had a question. I didn't know if I should save this to the end. We should no, let's do it right now.
Yeah,
Because this isn't even really something that you and I have talked about. But one of our patrons asked, Joe Johnson asked, what will we be doing after this?
What will we be doing?
Yeah, after the show wraps up in four more episodes.
I'll probably be wrapping Christmas presents. I think it's kind of, lined up with that.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to be doing.
Who Pods? I don't even know what other show.
Maybe we'll actually
Riverdale.
Maybe we'll look back at other Watchmen podcasts and kind of review other Watchmen podcasts.
Oh, that's shady, isn't it?
That'd be pretty bad.
I don't know if we should do that.
Have you seen Four in a Bed?
No.
It's the BBC or Channel 1. They take like 4 bed and breakfast owners in the UK, and then they all stay at each other's bed and breakfast, and then they rate them. And sometimes they say, like, would you stay at here again? And then when they like they like get music going and they zoom in when they circle no. It's all this drama. I feel like that's what we would be doing to other people's podcasts. Like, would we re-listen? No.
You're quite the Anglophile. Like,
I don't think so.
You watch the Great British Bake Off or whatever it is?
Uh-huh. Those are really the only 2 shows, though. I don't watch The Crown. I mean, we watch The Office. Duh. Detectorist. Duh.
Okay. I don't know.
So, come on. I mean, I really don't. I think I watched maybe 2 more than you, and all of a sudden I'm an Anglophile.
You're getting way too defensive.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting pretty angry.
That's what an Anglophile would do.
Jeez, I need to stick to my notes here.
So let's go ahead and jump into the show, huh?
Okay, let's do it. Did we, we didn't really give an answer, but we don't know what we're going to be doing, but I think I want to keep working with you.
Yeah, we keep doing
I
stuff.
like you.
We can at least hang out behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we might try and spin off and talk about, maybe we could talk about the comics, the other miscellaneous comics that came afterwards.
Yeah.
And just eviscerate them. Or maybe they're good. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, but we'll keep you guys abreast of whatever it is we decide to do there.
Already saying breast.
It's not Blue Dicks yet.
Jeez.
I haven't gotten there.
You got a few days till your birthday before you have to be too mature for that. Okay, so
Episode 6, yes.
Yeah.
This is titled This Extraordinary Being. It's directed by Stephen Williams, who also directed the 3rd episode. She was killed by space junk. Remember that one with the blue dildo?
I don't remember that. Oh, yeah, of course. There we go.
And the writers this week are Damon Lindelof, along with Cord Jefferson, who has worked on The Nightly Show with Larry Wilmore, Master of None, and The Good Place, where he was also one of the producers.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the premise of this episode was deep under the influence of nostalgia, the medication. Angela gets a first-hand account of her grandfather's journey. So
that's it.
They were very brief on this one. Hot takes.
Interesting. I mean, I think that's actually pretty accurate because this was such a tightly knit, episode. I mean, I thought last week was crazy. It was kind of nice just to kind of see what would you call it? I mean, not a bottle episode or anything, but it was kind of cool to stick to like a real world problem.
Right. It's almost like its own standalone episode in a way. I mean, it definitely ties into the larger themes and plot that's going on, but this episode could and should be submitted for awards as its own kind of standalone thing.
Right.
I think it exists in such a way that people who haven't watched the rest of the show could watch this and feel like they really get a good picture of a complete story within the story.
Best black and white show that you've seen before this, like the most recent one. Don't say Roma.
That was a movie, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I say show, I mean either TV show or movie.
Man, I don't know.
Come on.
There's a particular one.
Second season, Master of None.
Oh, that episode.
The Italian episode.
Yeah, that was pretty
That was really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you think? Give me your impressions on this. Not Master of None, but this episode.
Right. I loved it. I thought it was extremely effective. It had some big reveals. It had some really heavy consequences for the mythology of Watchmen, and I would want to say this does Alan Moore proud. Although he is such a curmudgeonly fucking asshole that he probably would still bitch about anything that's a translation of his material. But I still think that like what this did to further dissect and in ways tear apart the veneer of the Minutemen. Even characters that you might have thought were a little bit more decent, like Captain Metropolis, I thought it was really well handled. He was able to retcon in this backstory of Hooded Justice, which we've been alluding to anyway. Mm-hmm. But how seamlessly and successfully he did it, it was perfect. It was really well written, and it was this sad, tragic, and yet in a way kind of rewarding story at the end.
Yeah.
That there's this comeuppance. Obviously, there's a loss in his slide into becoming a costume vigilante, and he loses his family.
Right.
But there's this reclaiming of power that I thought was really well executed.
Yeah.
In the story.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I agree. I can't say it any better. No surprise there. But this was a difficult episode to watch. I think we kind of had to confront this episode as a viewer in a more difficult way than we've had to, dealing with other episodes where I think last week I had so much fun. I mean, there were tough moments in it, but I had so much fun watching it and just being a fan. And this one was really hard. I mean, it really revisited the, race relations in the United States, the inequities here. I mean, specifically the, Tulsa race riots, and then also even in New York City, 1938, even now, of course. It was really difficult to watch for me. I don't know if you kind of kept thinking, God, I'm going to have to keep, it's just, this was like kind of being in a class in university or something, we learned a lot, and you just kind of kept being reminded about how difficult people's lives are And that's just hard to watch sometimes. So I think this was a wonderful episode. But like we'll get to it later, but I didn't even have a Cubes moment or anything, which is not to say it was a bad episode. It was just so good and so serious for me that I was just kind of engrossed in the story and thinking about the historical context, which obviously is what they were trying to do. She took nostalgia and to get a sense of what her grandfather was going through and what was going on, and she sure as hell got it. So,
right. I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, I had a Cubes moment.
Oh yeah,
but
okay.
I think that the idea that it was just so heavy and so like profound and like weighing on you that you couldn't take a breather from it to go, aha, not something in particular. It was like, yeah, I get that.
Now I thought scenes were shot beautifully. You know, I thought the framing was awesome. I thought I really loved it. It was just kind of a heavy episode to watch. And I'm glad we had it because I really think this did go back to what's at the heart of all this, right? I mean, obviously Alan Moore was looking at nuclear annihilation and the fear that, you know, something could drop from the sky and just destroy all of us at any moment. Whereas this is revisiting something that's a lot more human in a way, right? It's just you can't even walk down the street after you've worked an 8 or 12-hour shift before you get accosted by somebody, right?
Right. And yeah, you're right. There's a much easier distance for us nowadays about the nuclear apocalypse. But even then, there was this removal of most people in society from it because they were all completely helpless to it.
Yeah.
Whereas this is, like you're saying, this is a very human, on the streets kind of situation that any and all of us are responsible for.
Right. I mean, look, like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and Jesus, the 80s, right? During the Red Scare or something, you could have a barbecue or be grilling outside of your house and you're not going to get accosted by nuclear weapons, right? Like the atomic bomb, you're not afraid of an atomic bomb. I mean, you actually kind of are, but really it doesn't happen. But to a large segment of the population, they were outside every weekend grilling and just trying to have a little bit of, you know, a decent life. And they were being accosted by the police and the power structure and everything. So this was a tough episode to watch for that, but I'm glad he did it. And man, I mean, also just looking kind of from a more fun kind of comic book standpoint, great origin story. I mean, You're totally right. Like it was seamless and it was wild and he had to retcon the whole thing, you know, and it was really well done.
The nods they give to their obvious and points, like heavy-handed homage, like the news vendor. We've seen news vendors pop up as a repeated theme from the Watchmen comic, but you have the news vendor who's reading the Action comic #1 with Superman.
Yeah.
And the immediate parallels that Will Reeves is seeing between himself and Superman, like, oh, we both were abandoned. Like, I did a video discussing this very thing.
I mean, heavy-handed, but not forced, which is such a difference.
Right. It worked in that it's like, oh, there is the parallel there, and you can see how one could draw inspiration from that, as well as the whole Batman idea of him being inspired by a movie when tragedy had struck in him in Tulsa during the riots. Like that's Batman, that's Superman. He even, like, in donning his costume, it really is reminiscent of Batman Year One or Daredevil Year One.
Absolute Daredevil for me.
Like you feel like all this is, it's all in the common language that we all understand media.
Right.
So we see this and we just kind of, we get it. We're like, oh yes,
yeah,
that is a Superman origin story. That is a superhero origin story. And that is actually my Cubes moment. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into it right now.
Yeah.
But when he's leaving the attempted hanging, and he's got the noose still around his neck, and he's holding the mask, and he sees the couple getting assaulted in the alleyway, and he's hesitating, and then he looks down at the mask, and there's this just kind of flicker of I still am a person that has to do something. I have to help these people, but now I need to hide my identity.
Yeah.
There's such a beauty and a tragedy to what they were showing right there that was it was so powerful.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know, it was like one of those just spine tingly, like, this, like taking a comic book origin, like up a notch, like having the full weight of the tragedy of how race is played out in this country.
Yeah.
echoed in the origins of that moment. It just had so much more weight to it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really his. I think during whenever we, I don't know if people know, but we reviewed the comic books leading up to this, and I think a few times over in that we started thinking, do these people have superpowers? And one time you said, well, Veidt, or now Veidt, right?
Retcon to Veidt.
Yeah, exactly. If he's the smartest guy in the world and he's so smart, he's running mental laps around everybody else. Is that a superpower? And the answer is, probably yes. This guy's superpower is that he just has to do the right thing. And after a while, he just doesn't give a fuck and he has to do the right thing. And he's doing the right thing for, like you said, a white couple who wouldn't spit on him if he's on fire. And he knows he has to cover himself, everything about him that makes him a human, and just become this, faceless figure to save them because he just has to do the right thing. And, harnessing that anger. And they talk about anger. We'll talk about that too, because I think that's really important, especially looking back at the last episode. But yeah, I mean, if you think about this guy's superpower, it's just that he wants to do the right thing and he has to get to the bottom of it, even if he has to, even if he's doing it to the benefit of others who kind of fucking hate him and would hang him from a tree. It's awful. And that has to be a superpower, just that you care that much about the right thing and everything like that. So, yeah, that was definitely a powerful moment, and I thought he just did it so well. I mean, it had all the great comic book aspects, like you're talking about, like, okay, he's in the dark alleyway, he's beaten up, he's bloodied, we don't know if he can stand, let alone fight, and then we see the couple who's accosted by people, and and it was awesome. Yeah, really good.
Okay, I want to take a step back, and I want to talk about the title. The title of this is This Extraordinary Being. And honestly, when I first heard that, I was like, I don't actually know what that title is in reference to, because all of these titles are a reference to something. So,
but we haven't known what they're in reference to at all, right off the bat.
I mean, some of them I kind of, I tried to look them up.
Okay, I was
trying to Google search this one in particular, and I couldn't figure it out.
Okay,
it wasn't pulling up. It was like maybe it's a reference to a song, but it's not the exact lyrics, and everything was a little off. So I went to Reddit's message board. And someone there pulled it out, and it's actually a reference to Hollis Mason's book from The Watchmen, one of those excerpts they have under the hood.
In between, yeah.
From the supplemental material, and this is talking about the appearance of the first masked vigilante, Hooded Justice. And the passage goes like this. It says, reportage on the second instance was more detailed. A supermarket stick-up had been prevented thanks to the intervention of a tall man built like a wrestler who wore a black hood and cape and also wore a noose around his neck. This extraordinary being had crashed in through the window of the supermarket while the robbery was in progress and attacked the man responsible with such intensity and savagery that those not disabled immediately were only too willing to drop their guns and surrender. Connecting this incident of the masked intervention with its predecessor, the papers ran the story under the headline that simply read, Hooded Justice. The first masked adventurer outside comic books had been given his name.
Huh.
All right.
Awesome.
So this extraordinary being, which is already just kind of like in itself, kind of like a beautiful phrase.
Yeah.
Like this, just the essence of being, I think, is just the extraordinariness of it.
Yeah.
But also talking about, in particular, Hooded Justice and how he was the first superhero. I think it's a good
It's
title.
cool. Yeah, it's a being like a human being, but also being as in becoming and acting, Yeah.
But also the meta aspect of all their titles being referenced to some sort of other medium, like be it songs or articles or books or passages like that, like pop culture kind of things. But this is a book within a book that this was the inspiration for. It's just kind of like,
it's almost like Lindelof really loves this source material.
He really seems
to. Yeah.
He's all about it.
Hey, what'd you think about the music?
Man, it was great.
Yeah.
I at several points through this episode, I kept making notes about how they were employing music that it would be so haunting and chilling,
right.
like the jazzy kind of, but little like discordant jazzy music during the fight scenes.
Yeah, that was actually my second note, and that's actually whenever I jumped up and paused it and said, "Oh, I got to go get a notebook,"
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean that idea of jazz as improvisation, where you're just making things up on the fly and decide. And I'm sorry to jump in, but just that idea of that improvisation aspect of it, which is jazz, right? And that's, I think the first time it was utilized, or one of the first times, was when he does your cues moment, look down and decide, fuck it, I'm doing this. And you can see the clockwork. You can see everything kind of going, okay, here we go. And it was awesome. I loved how they employed jazz. And then also, a lot of times people will, it's kind of this shtick to play cutesy, like kind of nice romantic music while there's a fight scene going on. A lot of people do that. I don't know, in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
This actually did it really well. And it wasn't just to kind of create this discordance between savagery and then just a romantic song, but it actually, like, the lyrics and everything fit and in the songs they chose. It was just yet another example of, like, they're just really framing these episodes really well. Anyway, sorry.
No, you didn't necessarily interrupt anything. I agree. I think there was certain parts that just, like, how it constructed the atmosphere. In particular, I remember there's this, like, what's the style? This kind of soulful. This lady was like singing this old 1920s or 30s song, and while she's singing, that's when Will gets assaulted by the cops who kidnap him, and then they're gonna go to do the fake lynching. And as they're doing it, the music kind of like moves into sounding like it's like underwater. It gets
warbled.
Faded and and it just like feels so like you feel discombobulated by it. I'm like, how the music just lends to the atmosphere and how they match it tonally to what's going on in the era, I think is just really well done. Like, we were talking about last week how they were in the 80s in Hoboken, New Jersey, and the music took on much more of that kind of 80s synth wave kind of feel to them.
Right.
And it was like, this really fits. And I want to say this is like credit to Ross or Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Not Atticus Finch. Okay, I said Make sure I said the right one this time.
Yeah, I mean that one song at the end, whenever he is burning down the warehouse. She kept repeating like "smoke gets in your eyes." So I don't even know the song, but I want to go back and find who did that and listen to that tonight. It was lovely.
So I want to start at the beginning, if that's cool with you. With the opening scene where we have the fake hooded justice with the amazing eyebrows, like just shaped in there, his really intense eyes. The actress looks really familiar, but I couldn't put a complete name on it.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay. That sounds fake. But like once again, kind of peering into this fictionalization of the Minutemen, like even from the beginning with the title card being Watchmen, and then the puff of smoke wafts it into Minutemen.
Awesome.
It was slick. And then it drops right into that the television show, which is absurd. I thought how heavy the dialogue was and like explaining. It was like a turn to the camera and just like, we have a lot of info to dump on you guys, and here's how we're gonna do that in this show
through the lens of Dick Tracy.
Yeah. But it once again, someone was calling me out and saying like, "Hey, this isn't that show's not a knock on Snyder. Lindelof loves Snyder. They're buddies." And maybe that's true. But that show has a lot of echoes of Snyder's distinct style. I think the punching and the blood just spraying out like onto the window to hold on the frame, stuff like that, feels very Zack Snyder.
Yeah. And
it's such a contrast. Like you see a little bit of that fight sequence in the interrogation room in the beginning, and how just like sensationalized and like brutal it is, versus a much more grounded and like the dull thud of punches that are sometimes not even fully connecting, and like just these people just brawling and obviously aching and hurting
and exhausted and just kind of wrestling at the end. I mean,
it just feels so much more visceral and real.
You're totally right. I mean, that first scene, I actually had to look away whenever he did the heads crashing. That's just not something I can watch, so I did the total, I'm still going to be a man, quote unquote, but I'm going to look down at the corner, like left corner of the screen, which is my trick during horror movies or anything I can't watch.
It's a good little life hack there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I couldn't even watch that. And then there was something even more difficult to watching some of those scenes, like the scene in the back of the supermarket or a corner store or whatever.
Right.
Because the whole time you're thinking, and they did such a good job with the camera putting it right over his shoulder. So then you're thinking, is there somebody on that stage above or up the stairs that has a gun or something? And you're just worried about this guy on a real personal level. So it was hard to watch in a real organic human way. Whereas the other one was just kind of hard to watch because it's just the easy thing to do where it's just blood splattering and.
Well, pivoting off of what you're saying right there, the supermarket sequence. I think in the very beginning we have the fictionalized version of Hooded Justice. I get it; they're both fictionalized, but in this instance, the real true story in this world of Hooded Justice is in direct, like it feels like it's in opposition to what the Hollis Mason journal entry was about it. Like he's like, oh, he stopped a simple burglary in a supermarket. Like, what's the money they're quibbling over that they're getting robbed in this place that he has to respond with brute force, right?
Yeah.
But it would make a lot more sense if he was fighting the KKK and that got brushed away from all news reports. That there was people in robes, especially as Fred was the supermarket cover for them and would have been like, change your outfits, we'll get you to the hospital kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But even in so much as they reverse the way he's going, he dives out of the window versus into the window to stop the crime. He's diving out of it to escape the gunfire. And I thought it was just kind of this clever way of like showing what you thought was going on there. It's actually the opposite.
Exactly. And I mean, he's, he busts through the back room of the store and he's a hooded figure punching a cop. Well, I think was in uniform. I'm trying to remember.
In the back, the KKK?
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I mean,
who opened the door?
Who opened the door?
The little window thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But even when it carries over into the store, when he looks up and he's pushing him up against the lettuce, I think that guy was in just his police uniform.
Was he pushing him into lettuce?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're looking at that, he looks up and he thinks, oh, shit, I'm out of my element here, or I'm out of my depth. I'm just pushing a cop. I'm hooded. I just look like this masked vigilante as I am.
Did he say you have the right to remain calm?
Oh, nice.
Was it?
He actually did say that, and then that's on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, that's got to go. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. So it's just, you're right that, that type of thing would be left out, and obviously the KKK elements would be left out, and all the real story. But just like anything is romanticized and fictionalized, the way we look back at, all history is like that. So it was kind of fun to kind of get back, and like you said, I know that this is not real, but to see what really happened and how complicated it was and complex it was. And this is just a guy going into a room of like 5 or 6 people because, again, he just has to do the right thing. I mean, I think in the show, what I keep being surprised about is, damn, these people are really courageous. I mean, just like we had Looking Glass go in last week into that empty mall or whatever, right?
Those are the interesting characters, the ones who look at that dangerous situation and they go toward it.
Good Lord. Yeah, I guess you're right. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a show.
Yeah,
but
the whole premise of Cloverfield, right? It's like, let's follow the idiots who would go after the monster.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's an interesting story there.
Yeah, I think he just actually also did the synopsis for Twister.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Could you pass me a beer?
Idiots are great. Yeah, I'll give you one of these old milk stouts.
Beautiful.
So I thought there was also a pretty funny little nod in the American what was it called? American Hero
Story. Yeah.
Where they're talking about the relationship he has with Nelson Gardner, and after he beats up the cops, and it like zooms away to the police station, like you see the police officer like still watching it. And if you listen to the dialogue, he's like, oh, no. Now what I'm really troubled about is that Nelson Gardner is actually cheating on me with J. Edgar Hoover. Now I have to deal with that. And like just how like seedy and soap opera it has it going on.
And that everybody's watching it on their desks on these little old TVs that we used to have in our kitchens growing up.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't
all
get
the
it.
Technology is, they're so far behind us in technology. So they don't have cell phones.
Yeah.
In this world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a weird deal to imagine somebody not having a cell phone.
It's a little 1990s-ish.
Yeah. So not even the Nokia. I mean, you got to play Snake.
But it's still a little bit of a hodgepodge.
Yeah. No, it was that, and I love how Laurie just walks in and she's like, turn that shit off.
Yeah.
She's like, because again, I mean, he just so well, like even 4 or 5 seconds right there, they just capture the character.
I have to admit, when I saw the previews for this episode, I thought this was a Sister Night episode. I thought this was going to be Angela Abar, Regina King, like front and center. It was going to be her story and how she grapples with the revelations of her grandfather's past. So I thought it was going to be full-on Quantum Leap.
I thought
where
we'd be in
see
Saigon.
her as the body the whole time.
Yeah.
But the actor, and I it wasn't listed yet who the actor is who's playing the younger Will Reeves, was great. My favorite performance of this episode. I just thought that's a lot for him to have to come in and be like, oh, this show's already established at this point, but you're going to be the lead character in this episode and you have to carry the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
You know what? That's so funny that you said that because now I realize which younger version you're talking about. I thought you meant the kid.
No.
I was like, yeah, I guess he did a pretty good job, but I don't.
The young man.
Right. But now I realize, oh yeah, there were multiple younger variants, and that's no, you're right. He by far. I mean, I think that Cal had a really powerful scene too.
Right.
I mean, because again, just looking at like Laurie in 5 seconds conveyed who she is. I mean, I know she was in it a little bit more, trying to get her to sign the consent form, but. And sorry to derail this, but I think I was looking at who had the best performance, and it's obviously him. But Cal, just in like 30 or 45 seconds, you see the worried husband, the worried partner freaking out, and of course they rush at home. They probably, are knocking on the door at home. He's trying to feed the kids or something like that. And then like, you got to come to the hospital, overdose. He's thinking, what the hell? Like, that doesn't sound like my wife.
Right.
And then they gave him this script, and I'm sure they said something like, introduce who she is, who you are, how you know each other, where you are, what time you are, right? And he follows it, and you hear him just start to repeat it too. And it was just beautiful. I mean, it was hard to watch, but again, just in 30, 45 seconds, everybody's so good. The dialogue's so good, the camera's so good, and the actors are so good that they can do so much with so little, as opposed to Snyder, who couldn't do anything with a lot.
Snyder Slam!
Da-da-da!
You thought it was difficult to watch that particular passage though? I mean, I don't know. I get like the weight of it, but
yeah, like
I find that things don't I don't know. Maybe things don't emotionally affect me in the same way.
No, dude, come on.
A little bit of a robot.
Android without the emotion chip.
Yeah. How this slid into it did this like reverse Wizard of Oz kind of
slid
thing
into your DMs.
It went from color into black and white, and how that transitioned, and then throughout this episode, the repetition of his mom in color in the black and white playing the piano like on the sides of the street. How there's the memory, but then there's obviously overlaps of different memories. Like the cinematography on this episode was gorgeous.
Yeah.
It was so well done. The sets in part felt like this really classy 1950s Oscar-winning kind of movie, right? Like there was this transition where he walks out of the police station in daytime, and then it pans up to the buildings, and it drops into nighttime, and then the lights of the window
start
lights
flicker
on,
yeah,
and then it pans across, and like, if they did that in one shot, it looks so good. It was just such a sweet looking shot, and
and
another
they,
Cubes
and,
moment.
And they
for
even
me.
had the old advertisements on the brick wall and everything. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous. You're right. It almost felt sometimes like, okay, we see that we're on the old Hollywood set, right? We see that like this is like the set they have. They have a few streets for like 1930s New York, and the warehouse scene, kind of like that. It felt like watching an old Indiana Jones or something, right? When he's going after the Nazis or something. It just seemed really staged, but it was supposed to, and it never took you away from it. I mean, I wasn't around in the 30s. I don't know what it looked like. But I guess I mean to say that they did, like when we watch a black and white movie, we have expectations of what it's going to be like. It's going to be dated. It's going to be old. And they kind of played with that because then they would introduce the shimmering piano player, his mom playing the piano. They would introduce these pops of color.
Him as a kid in the field outside the window.
Exactly. And then him going through a door frame and it changes, now he's outside. Or I mean, for me, and then his old memories in Tulsa, seeing the planes fly over sometime. And I think the hardest thing for me to watch, and what really hit home, if we want to talk about the whole race thing, I don't know if you want to go there right now, but, he's trying to walk home after a shift. I think I already alluded to it or talked about it a little bit earlier. And you have the white cops, and I'm thinking, fuck, this guy can't even walk home, and now he's going to get bullied and probably he's going to get beat the fuck up or killed because he was just trying to do his job and do the right thing. And they're pressuring him, and he can't even walk home and have a good night. And then you think, okay, all these other people who are walking their dogs or whatever else they're doing on the street, they're seeing, because he was out of uniform, I think, at that point. He was just walking home. So they're thinking, okay, we have a car full of white cops talking to a black dude on the street, on the sidewalk. Surely this group's in the right and this guy is in the wrong. And so then we're thinking, God, that must be so hard just to live your life. You can't even walk home at night and enjoy. Because like if it's a romantic comedy, you're thinking, oh, it's such a nice night to walk out, But because it's framed in this way, it just looks awful and feels awful. And then not only that, he just smacks us in the face whenever the car pulls away, and you see the 2 dead bodies being pulled by the car, right? And you see the blood streak on the. So
it was awful.
It was awful, and that's what I mean to say. It felt like the black and white movie of expectations, and then they played with those, but then manipulated it so well.
It's the color streaks of red as it goes down the street, which they do this a couple times with the color red here, and it was a nod to Pale Horse, which they referenced last episode, as well as Schindler's List, of the effective use of color pop for emotion and cueing you into particular things that are supposed to really impact you.
Yeah. I mean, he saw, I'm trying to think, other than characters like faces and stuff like that, that red light at the end. Do you remember what, like, there was the alarm that was over the, maybe it like indicated they were recording or something? I don't know.
Yeah, the red light was them recording, and it was like the horror that they were actually recording. You also see like his red folder that he's got the Cyclops thing in, and it's got his little logo that he drew on there.
Right.
And that's very interesting. Like, that's this whole other topic that reminds you to, the larger premise of what's going on in this story of the show, Watchmen. When we've seen the Cyclops before. We've seen that eye, but we were associating it, I think, with the squid. We were under an assumption that was a symbol of the squid when we went into the 7th Cavalry's warehouse. You see that spray painted on the walls like it's for target practice or something.
Yeah.
But now the narrative shifts a little, where was it target practice for them, or is that their logo that these people are is the 7th Cavalry a return of the
Great Mesmerizers?
Of the Great Mesmerizers, the Cyclops or whatever, KKK? Is it that kind of long-standing tradition and they still have that kind of logo there? Or are these guys potentially some double-crossing ops thing that's trying to work against that? It's still a little unclear, and I would lean toward, oh no, they're clearly white supremacists.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's something in that. There's something in the hesitation with what Judd was trying to say at the end that is supposed to make us second guess that.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, that's what brings it to the wider world and why it's not just a standalone episode, Because
this is still pervasive.
Absolutely. And we don't know. And each character has such a nuanced approach to race and a nuanced approach to his or her history, right? And they're trying to do all this within just like an hour a week. And we don't know. I mean, was the chief of police a sympathetic figure? I mean, in some ways, maybe. Was there a greater conspiracy afoot? It seems like in the last episode, also obviously there's something tragic and vulnerable about someone who is kind of mind melted into hanging himself. So maybe we just, he's a little bit more vulnerable and he's going to tug on the heartstrings a little bit more right there. Right.
Right.
But we don't know. I mean, at this point, we don't know I guess it's so interesting. And you're right. I think we talked about this on our preview episode leading up to the show. I know that, the creators of the show said that within 6 or 7 weeks, the whodunit's going to be answered.
And it was.
And it was. But now that's not the point. We don't care about that.
I would like to point out that neither of us guessed Judd killed Judd.
You're completely right.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many did. in fairness.
Yeah, I'm like, who thought, oh, he clearly hung himself while being mesmerized by a hypnosis flashlight.
I mean, we were even thinking that the pills were like a strength modulator because the 100-year-old dude.
Well, they make such a point of him standing up.
Yeah.
That was obviously to lead us to believe that, oh, potentially he could have done that. But yeah, no.
No, he has a fancy flashlight.
He's got a fancy Of course he does.
Yeah.
No. I mean, that's the other element of this being a Lindelof joint, is that I think it brings that element of all it takes is another episode backstory, and we can reinvent a character for how you look at them. So if we do end up getting a Judd Crawford episode that delves into his backstory, we might get answers of why he wasn't. If a character is not outright telling us what happened, they're withholding information to make us kind of second guess that. Yeah. And you never know which way it's going to necessarily play. But doesn't it, in a way, feel a little bit dirty or wrong to be like, oh, but maybe there is a good explanation for why you're holding a KKK robe in your closet secretly? I'd be like, no, just don't have that.
Right. I mean, but if we didn't have those questions, this would be on CBS.
Yeah.
You know, this would be in between Blue Bloods and Survivor season 36, right? No, but I mean, is Blue Bloods still going? My mom.
I don't know. I thought it was a good call.
If Blue Bloods is not on, my mom is really disappointed. And you know, yeah, I mean, this is we don't know, and we don't, and I'm wondering like what's in store. I think we all are. What's in store for Angela? Obviously,
right?
Okay, she survived that. I don't want to say what's in store for Judd because I mean he's dead, but also like what's in store for his memory or legacy and what really happened. You know, what is Senator Keene's role in this? Like we just have so many interesting questions, and it's going to be weird to see what's resolved in 4 episodes.
Going back a little bit to his origin stories, the parallels between his character and Sister Night, his granddaughter, are very fascinating. They both have chosen to wear hoods. Him being inspired by Bass Reeves from Trust in the Law, I think was the name of the movie that he saw as a kid.
But I think that guy was a real sheriff, right?
Yeah.
In Oklahoma Territory.
Yeah, real guy. I did a video on that as well.
Was it a territory by that time or was it a state?
I think it was a territory, and once it became a state, he was one of the first policemen.
Okay.
Actually, for a short time in one of the towns. But yeah, he was also potentially like the inspiration for the Lone Ranger.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't listen to the midweek pods. Jesus, I just outed myself.
You should check it out. It was
wow.
It was a good little video.
I'm not a patron though. I'm sorry.
But we also did a little episode 2 weeks ago where we were talking about the original notes for Hooded Justice. His name was going to be Brother Knight.
Right.
Although there was going to be this guy who had like some ties to the KKK, some sort of affinity for like Nazis in a way. And we discussed this a little bit, how this does still fit within that kind of narrative in so much as Will Reeves did have that document from the German propaganda that was like his one thing that he held on to when his dad said
from 1917-18
watch over this child or whatever it said on it, and that was German propaganda meant to point out the inequalities in America and try and entice African Americans to defect, essentially.
Right.
So if one might want to argue that he has a degree of an affinity, it might be like there was a point to be made there in the problems of America's society at the time.
Yeah, I mean everything fits in a way. I mean he introduced a ton of new material, but it fits within the overall scope and theme of the story, which I think was done so well. And it was hard to do. I mean, when it works this well, you're like, okay, this wasn't by accident. This is because they spent a ton of time on this,
right?
You know, and not just the graphics and not just when to use color, but just the idea and the theme of what this was and what this character is going to be was really well done, and it could have gone wrong in a lot of ways.
And then you look at like she takes on the moniker Sister Night. They now explain, could simply put white makeup on, and that's enough to convince people that he was a white guy under the hood. And she now sprays her eyes black. The black hood he wears also could be a reversal of the white hood of the KKK. Mm-hmm. I would think, like, how much more powerful of an origin story this is for this character, and how much more interesting it is than this muscle man from the circus named Ralph Muller.
Right. No, exactly. You know, and speaking of just the white paint around the eyes, I mean, people see what they want to see.
Right.
People, if they are extremely racist in this time, or racist in, you know, and when I say this time, I meant the 1938, or racist in this time now, they're going to associate goodness with them, right, with their own tribe. And so they're not really going to ask that many questions.
They're going to want to assume it's a white guy.
Of course. And they might not even give it a second thought, right?
I mean, we see all these acts, both large and small, of racism in this episode. I thought, you know, just with like the pinning of his badge, and like he's like telling the other officer, "Oh, I did this because of you. I really look up to you," and that guy was just like, "You're an idiot." Essentially, like, how you shouldn't have done this. Obviously, much more wisdom about the problems of the dynamics there.
Yeah.
But also he gives him that kind of warning, like, beware the Cyclops. And then we see later when he makes the arrest of Fred, which I love that actor.
Yeah.
Who plays that guy. He's like in every HBO show, I think. I'm just seeing him in every single one.
And he seems like he's straight out of The Rocketeer.
He was the bad guy in True Detective. He was really good there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And Boardwalk Empire, and he's in a ton of stuff. But when he brings him in for the arrest, like, they seem to be taking that arrest from him, and it was like, oh, like he can't even have that arrest.
But then you knew why they were. I mean, you knew, why they were taking it.
And then them doing the white power symbol.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. Also, wasn't it like this hoax for a while? This idea, like, oh, the OK sign is like a white power symbol, but then like they straight up, like, in this show make it like that is it's a white power symbol.
Oh, I've never heard this. I've never heard this.
Oh, I don't know.
So,
I might be actually wrong on that, but I think that might be true.
Well, you mean it might be true that it was, or that people say it was?
Well, I think now it's been kind of co-opted and adopted. I think it was trolling initially. They were saying like, oh, the OK symbol is like a white power symbol, and then they were kind of laughing about it. But then it seems like a bunch of white supremacists are making that all the time. So now it is.
OK, Oklahoma?
What?
Holy smokes. So I definitely want to touch on, I know we've touched on it a lot. We've touched on race. I want to touch on it some more. I mean, womp womp. But also I want to talk about Reeves, just the character, kind of his motivations, his drives. I think it was really interesting. And looking back at episode, do you mind like looking back at episode 5 a little bit with Looking Glass?
Let's do it.
For me, I thought the whole point of episode 5 was dealing with anxieties and in Looking Glass being able to, and I'm sorry, this is awful doing this podcast, but I'm just awful with names. What's his name? Not Looking Glass, but
Wade?
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking of the actor's name. Okay. So Wade is so awesome, right, at looking at others and knowing the truth, but he can't admit his own truth. He can't do that self-reflection because it's just going to be too tough to confront. So instead of doing that,
his mirror mask points one way.
Right, exactly. And so instead of just going to therapy for an hour and actually sitting down and opening up, he's like, I'll just spend all this money building an underground bunker, and then I'm going to do tests every day for this ED extra dimensional whatever it was called. You know, yet in episode 6, he shows up to his wife, right? And he says, okay, I'm angry.
Episode 5. Yeah.
Oh, wait, this is episode 5?
This is episode 6.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So in episode 6 now, he comes home to his wife and he says, okay, I'm angry.
Right.
And right there we know here, this is a guy who's able to admit his own, it's not a problem. His anger is righteous and it's for a good reason. And so unlike Looking Glass, he's able to actually turn that around and use it for good, which I thought that was interesting that they were back to back. And I think they were back to back on purpose. The fact that he was able to come home and say, you know what, I am angry and I have to do something about it. And what I'm going to do, I might lose myself and I might lose the police force because now he knows the job's a sham. He's then going to lose the Minutemen because he realizes they're not looking out for him. They're just selling these cool Norman Rockwell, like awesome, like bank, I don't know, licensing agreements and stuff like that and promos.
The racist little advertisements for $1 bill.
Fucking
another
awful.
one of the Minutemen.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, so we have...
Which you saw hanging in the trailer in the very first episode.
Yeah. And so then he also loses his family at the end. So he loses all this, but he could have had a pretty I'm not going to say it was a decent life, but coming from where he came from, that's actually, you might view it as a success in the context, right? But he still says, you know what, fuck it. I'm angry. I have to do something about it. And that's the difference. I mean, I don't know if it's a difference between him and Wade, but wow, it shows that he harnesses it and does something. And I don't know if Wade's there yet. You know what I mean? In fact, Wade's not because he sold out Sister Night at the end. So Wade's still...
I think he saved her.
Okay, you know what? You're right about that. You're right about that. But Wade is somebody who's still searching, and he's searching for the truth and everything like that. And of course, he is dealing with squids falling from the sky. He's dealing with crazy interdimensional conspiracy theories. But at least...
But he's also dealing with a very real power that is beyond his comprehension.
Down the hall.
Down the hall. And also, the 7th Cavalry knows all about all of them and is also teleporting basketballs all over the place. They have some sort of power to them, and they have a reach that he doesn't even understand yet.
And you know what? Why basketballs? Is it because they bounce and they'll make noise and alert you to where they are?
I think so. I think it just makes the most sense.
I mean, as you know, that's my favorite sport. Yeah. So I love that.
I think it was because of you. I think they knew, Clay loves basketball. Let's do basketball.
Speaking of retcon... Yeah. No, I mean, I just thought that, whenever he said, okay, I thought there were a lot of powerful moments. And when he showed up, obviously he has the noose around his neck. He just got in this fucking crazy fist fight. And he says, okay, I'm angry. It was so understated and so well done, just like this show was, this episode, that or the show in general. It just worked, It was cool.
In addition to that, the fact that, she not only supports him, but kind of pushes him in that direction. June was like, yeah, this is going to be a healthier way for you to channel that anger. And she was the one kind of pulling the strings and like stick with me. We're a team. We can fight this together. And she was probably right.
Yeah.
He should have stuck with her. And when he started working with the Minutemen, that's when shit went sideways and he got betrayed by them. I love how it deconstructed the mythos of the Minutemen even further. I mean, we already saw the seedy side of them with the comedian being a rapist and all of them kind of backing him and it being
alleged.
Misogynist. But additionally, it just seemed like they now have unveiled the obvious racial issues going on there. Yeah. Because they also present it with this relationship where they have that shot where he touches his fingers, right. Where Will touches Captain Metropolis's fingers, and the electricity's there. And I was like, I wonder how we're gonna slowly see this relationship build. Oh, they're fucking. It's that relationship's already happening. It seemed almost later that night or something really soon after. And he's like, will you join? Yeah, I guess I'll join. Okay, but you got to cover up and you have to hide who you are because they just won't understand. And it's the sheen on this Captain Metropolis guy immediately diminished. It was he's scummy already too. Yeah.
And then it was just so awful. It was just so awful whenever he's calling him from the payphone saying, hey, come help me. He's like, why don't you just come up to my loft?
Right.
I'll get a bottle of Chianti open. Let's talk about this.
Just want a booty call.
It was just awful. I mean, you're saying oh no, I have this government conspiracy afoot. I just walked into a theater with hundreds of dead bodies. Oh, just come over, baby. It was awful.
How this still also worked within the world of Watchmen, the comic, with the name dropping of Moloch. Moloch was known to use devices to control people's minds. And so when Captain Metropolis during the Minutemen presser is like, oh yeah, we're because he was gonna say we're going after the KKK, and he's like, we're going after Moloch, the mesmerizer. I was like, that's a clever way of integrating that story while also pointing out that he's fucking over Hooded Justice in this instance of like being able to call out the actual problem.
Yeah.
The actual, like having a fall guy for a greater institution.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
But in a way it still fit because mind control ended up being one of those things that seems so kooky and conspiracy, but straight up was happening in this episode.
Yeah. And who would have thought it could have worked?
Yeah.
You know, or that it worked, I mean, thematically. Right.
When he's burning down the warehouse.
Beautiful scene.
I love when there was a point, I'm going off tangent here. But there's a point where he starts stacking all the bodies. And at that point I went, oh yeah, I wonder how they're going to crowbar in Adrian Veidt's story this episode.
I thought the same thing.
It's going to be so awkward.
And it's going to be so much color, it's going to like blind me.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
And thankfully they didn't.
Uh-huh.
I think they made a great call. They decided, nah, we're not going to do that. This episode is too important and too standalone to have the wacky adventures of Adrian Veidt going on.
Yeah.
And that was a great call.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when he's like arranging those bodies and then burning down the place, he takes that projector, and I was like, why is he taking this projector? But it comes into play. He obviously figured out the technology they were using, these crystals inside this projector, and was able to, turn it into a flashlight that he was able to mind control Judd at the end.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of wonder about like the history of Hooded Justice. According to the comic, he like disappears and they think he died, right? And maybe he disappears, but in the meantime, something must have been going on with what he was working on, and maybe we'll get a little bit more of a reveal. We get a very limited scope of backstory into his origin as Hooded Justice, but there's another 40 years of his life, 50, 60 years of his life that we don't see yet.
He was tinkering.
He's just tinkering.
Yeah, we're just going to see him in a garage just tinkering.
Just becoming Iron Man. Yeah,
just tinkering and just coming up with that flashlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought it was I want to know more about him, and I think it's interesting, you know, like we talked about, you know, he lost his faith in justice, right? And that was the name of the film or whatever. I mean, he didn't lose his faith in that film, but just
Trust the law.
Trust the law, right? He lost his faith in the law and justice when he was actually a policeman. Lost his faith in the Minutemen. I don't know if he lost his faith in his wife, but I mean, she left him and she said, "Don't ever come here." I mean, but I guess I mean to say he lost everything, and she even said, "You know, you don't know us. Don't ever reach out."
What did you think of that scene? Like, for some reason, that didn't work for me.
It was one of the only things that was forced, and I almost thought it was maybe a false memory, and then Angela was going to kind of confront it or something. It was weird.
See,
But
would be.
I don't think it was a false memory. It was one of the few things that was rushed.
But the idea that there could have been false memories within this, like this is how he wants to remember it, that he just simply walked into the house, saw his son putting on the makeup, and went to go scold him. I mean, I feel like there's already this underlying story about fathers seeing their sons putting on makeup and being abusive to them that also plays into this kind of violent scenario. But in this instance, he was following in his dad's footsteps and applying this makeup, and that triggering this kind of violent reaction in him. But even then, he just kind of walked him over to the sink. Like there was nothing like physically abusive or
He didn't even grab his arm
that terrifying about the situation. And so I think maybe that lends credence to this being a false memory. In his mind, he was doing things right.
Well, they had to, in the hour episode, they had to tell us at least why all of a sudden he's on his own. Right? And they did it, and it didn't work. But either way, whether it was a false memory or it was a rushed memory or it was just the way he remembers it and he remembered it incorrectly, it still happened. And I guess my question now is, what does it mean that he reached out to Angela, and why? You know, I mean, what does it mean for the plot? What does it mean for him as a grandfather? Because he was told to, you know, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what he was doing for the 40, 50, 60 years. So what does it mean? Because his family kind of disowned him.
When Lady True is talking to Will Reeves at the table 2 episodes ago, and she's talking about, like, why don't you just tell her? Why don't you just tell her? Obviously, she must have been saying, like, why don't you just tell her about the history?
Yeah.
Instead of this. And instead of, I think she calls it passive-aggressive exposition.
Uh-huh.
And that's basically what this episode is. It's, oh, but if she takes the pills, she will know it.
Right.
But how would they have known there would be a scenario build up that would result in her taking those pills?
It would have to be somebody like Veidt, who's that smart, who can plan stuff out to with that much minutia and everything.
Right. Either that, or they have some sort of element like Dr. Manhattan where they can see the future in a way.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Like, otherwise, that part of the story just seems a little bit like far-fetched, I guess. Like, she'll know in 3 days who I am, like, once she goes through this experience. And then she wakes up at Lady True's place. And she's on the IV drip, just like we saw Beyond, her daughter. And yeah, the medicine is afoot in implanting memories. And that makes me wonder, was Beyond maybe not like the clone or her mother or something? That's possible too.
Uh-huh.
But maybe Beyond was being fed her memories, her Lady True's memories or something.
Okay.
Although she didn't seem that old enough at all. I don't know. It's
yeah. I mean, we don't know. Obviously, generational pain and generational inequality is something that's central to this, if not the central thing. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, also, how did she get to Lady True's? I mean, I don't understand how she even got there. Is the law still looking for her? Is she on the lam?
I mean, when you have $1 trillion, I think you can just take people.
Epstein? Did he commit suicide? No, we won't get into that. Obviously not.
We know he did.
So, I want to talk about something I think is interesting.
Okay.
And again, I think
I prefer those to things you want to talk about that are not.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So when we look at episodes 1, 2, 3, whatever, I remember kind of being a little bit surprised by how okay I was with the strong government, like police force, right? I mean, it was like a police state and I was okay with it. You know what I mean? Like them taking people in, interrogating them, Looking Glass doing his thing. They pull them aside. They beat the shit out of them. They go run rampant in like the Nixon like RV park or whatever. And
Right.
I was like, okay, that's, that violates due process and everything like that, right? But it just kind of felt like, okay, I can see why they're doing it. And that's a kind of a scary thing, right?
Right.
And I think we were talking about being surprised by that. Here we see Reeves at the end, say, hey, you have that KKK outfit in your closet. Why do you have that? I need to hang you. Kind of maybe just even, I mean, if it's just because he needs to get his generational revenge in a way or make things right and kind of like balance the scales in a generational way, even if it's removed, I guess, 2 generations, I kind of thought, maybe that makes sense and maybe that's okay. And then I thought, wait a second. And then I just started thinking about kind of the law. And, there's, and I'll wrap this up in 15 seconds, but there's laws in place where, like a domestic abuse victim, right? Like, let's take your like cliche, stereotypical domestic abuse victim. She's been abused, the abused housewife or something, right? I mean, I'm not saying homemaker, but I'm just kind of doing the stereotypical thing. She's been abused for 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Finally kills her husband. But it's not he wasn't actually trying to kill her. He was just asleep and she was fucking fed up. She would generally go to trial for murder. Whether they, convict her is a different matter. Right. But it's just this idea of, okay, it's not self-defense, but kind of what she did made sense. You know what I mean? And like the law should not necessarily punish that. And this was a kind of same
justifiable,
thing.
though.
It's justifiable and it makes sense. And you can see yourself doing the same thing, right? And so I kind of was watching him while he was hanging himself thinking, okay, the scales are balanced. And then I thought, again, we're still dealing with this extrajudicial thing. The law should take care of this. We should all elect representatives who do the right thing. But the problem, again, with who watches The Watchmen is that they don't always represent our best interest. And so we have these weird power structures and competing power structures and factions that was at the heart of the comic book. And now I just love the fact that it's at the heart of the show in so many ways. I don't know, just kind of an interesting thing I was thinking about a lot.
Yeah, I agree. There was a point. I was checking our chat here. Rubio brought up, he says, how is there a memory of Will hanging Judd in those pills? Because if you think about it, that happened while he had the pills in his pocket and Angela took him into custody. And there's no reason that should be in there.
Do we have a 3D printer? Do we have a micro 3? They have shitty TVs, but do they have a micro 3D
He was right
printer?
there using his Harry Potter wand to extract the memory and put it into pill form real quick.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, shenanigans. This might just be one of those where it's like, we're going to have to give this show a pass on some bullshit. Because otherwise, I don't know. What is there? How would they explain that? Unless the pills...
Hey, it could have been through the IV drip. It could have been through maybe the IV drip was some medicine.
Oh, shit. Like, it seems like she's, like, putting an IV drip on her in order to, like, bring her awake, but instead she feeds one last memory to her while she's still, like, tripping balls.
Look.
That's actually not a bad idea.
I give movies, books, shows the benefit of the doubt all the time. The only person I've ever seen pee in a movie, Field of Dreams. Or not Field of Dreams. League of Their Own. Greatest pee of all time.
Scott Pilgrim has the little pee bar.
Does he pee as well?
Yeah.
But I just mean to say, I've never really seen that many characters pee, but I assume they go to the bathroom.
That was my biggest problem with that show 24, where you have Kiefer Sutherland.
He never pees?
24 hours, man. You're taking a shit at some point. Is that commercial break enough time for you to take a shit?
Dipes and wipes. He's wearing a diaper. Dipes and wipes.
That's not an expression, is it? Oh, dipes and wipes.
You don't say dipes and wipes?
Now I do, I guess.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to start integrating that into my
dipes and
lexicon.
wipes. No, I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't have been in there. Maybe it was the IV. I don't know. Yeah.
I think, what else? I had
I got a question for you.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times we say next to die. Who's your next to die?
My next to die, man.
Grandpa.
I don't know. Like, who's my next to be resurrected for a bit? We're going to see more Judd, I think.
Hood of Justice, man. He's out. He kind of fulfilled his purpose.
You think so? Enough of the backstory's been laid out?
He's going to die. I mean, he's like 105 years old.
Yeah.
My God.
Okay.
I'm 36. I'm getting tired. I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Yeah. I would agree there. I'd say Hooded Justice. He's going to go.
Yeah.
I thought I had one other point I was going to bring up. I'm not necessarily finding it.
Can I ask you another kind of question, a thematic question I had?
No.
Well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
You know, how far do you think the show is going to go? Obviously, it's brought up problems, right? It's been a conversation piece, I think, for race and everything like that. But, and this is a stupid question from the get-go, and I get it. But, you know, Veidt tried to solve something at the end of the comic book. In a way, I mean, maybe he was successful. Maybe maybe both countries were going to what's it called, like mutually assured destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was going to take place. I don't know. So maybe he was successful in a way, even though that's kind of weird to say he was successful when he did this crazy shit. But we see that, you know, we have a government that is, I mean, in a very kind of microcosmic way, right? Like, the government creates the problem. The police literally go into a theater and flash lights and say, kill yourselves. And then when they do kill each other, they then call them animals, right? So I mean, just like we can look at the government doing redlining and stuff like that. I mean, we can go even...
They force a situation and then they build the narrative for it.
They create the problem and then they blame the victim for the problem. You know, yeah, of course, right? So are we going to see something like, I mean, I'm sorry to use a Game of Thrones reference, but breaking the wheel? Are we going to see anything like that where it is kind of like a Veidt thing where he does at least try to change something? I know we talked about earlier a few weeks ago, maybe it was that kind of mini pod we did on the phone, but maybe there was something with, you know, dispersing nostalgia in a way so that everyone kind of can feel each other's pain or something, so we become more empathetic. I don't know.
I like that idea that the Millennium Clock is going to
crop dust.
It's going to crop dust nostalgia in a way that makes everyone have a reckoning with our past. But I don't know if that would translate into some sort of kumbaya moment, like, you know, an alien kind of forcing the hand of a degree of denuclearization and harmony in a way. But if you think about this, who are we have three big players.
Yeah.
I guess that could potentially shape the outcome, and we're still really unsure.
Wait. I
on
just
what their
want to make sure we're
motivations are.
clear because, you're going to go over these three players.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have the 7th Cavalry, who are working on something with lithium that they might be making bombs potentially that they might be transporting through the little dimensional portal thing that they're using. That's roughly what might be going on there, and they could be the resurrection of, or maybe it never left, the KKK Cyclops sect of this KKK cult.
Yeah.
But we don't know fully what's going on there. We have Lady True, who's building a giant millennium clock in the heart of America, and that could potentially be her enacting a sort of revenge for what happened to her homeland of Vietnam by the employment of America's Superman, aka Dr. Manhattan, when he just kind of took over everything there.
Have you ever thought that maybe it's just a truck stop?
It's just a truck. It's just a tourist trap. They have markups of these little millennium clocks.
You're walking around getting your big gulp, and they paid you, and your shower's ready.
It's basically Buc-ee's.
It's a Buc-ee's.
That's all she's making.
Anyway,
then the third one is Adrian Veidt. We don't really know what he is, but he's clearly a player on the field who is more powerful than we know, and I don't know how he's going to enter back into the game, but he's working toward entering back into the game from the past.
yes,
right?
sub me in, coach.
His plot is still 3 years in the past, or 2 years. I don't know.
You're forgetting one of the biggest players.
Who?
He's the man with your favorite member.
Dr. Manhattan?
Is he gonna come back?
They have that one scene of the blue mask and a blue hand reaching down and picking it up from Comic-Con.
Precisely.
But what if that's just some big tease? What if we're not going to have the Hulk running through the forest in Endgame? Maybe it's just going to be Hulk Buster with Mark Ruffalo in the suit. Who knows? That could be what's going on here. That was just a big trick. Trailer's a lie.
Well, oh wait. So was that actually a trailer, and they changed it out for the
Yeah.
Hulkbuster? Okay, because
Yeah.
I don't watch trailers.
In the trailer, they have the Hulk running through with the rest of the team, and then all of a sudden it's just Hulkbuster. They obviously didn't want to give that reveal, so they spent the time to animate Hulk running through through Wakanda in the big Infinity War battle.
Yeah. Holy shit. Well, I'm glad I didn't watch that trailer. Yeah, I mean, I don't. We don't know. I mean, it's tough to know, and it's tough to know what they're going to do in 4 days. Okay, let's extend this question out a little more.
Okay.
Is there going to be a season 2?
See, I don't know. It could be that he's or this Watchmen team are going to take such a big swing with whatever happens here that they might not want to do a second.
They're going to top the
season.
ball.
But
Infield.
also,
Yep.
given how franchises work, if HBO is making the investment in this show and this property, they might still want a second season. Remember that show 13 Reasons Why on Netflix?
Yeah.
That had no business having a second season, but they sure as shit crowbarred one in once it was so financially successful.
Well,
And that's kind of what happens.
High School Musical, the series, got picked up for a second season before the first episode even launched, and thank God.
Oh, sweet.
Thank God. I mean, I'm not kidding. But, I mean, I guess here we have a little bit of a Game of Thrones King Killer Chronicle problem. Is it going to be resolved? And, I don't want to invite any criticism of Lost. I liked it. I think you liked it. Whatever. Not everybody's going to love it. It's not your baby. Write it yourself if you're going to be unhappy. I'm sorry. That's a little bit of my, I just think, I think there's a little bit of a problem with criticism here with the Twitter sphere and everything. But do you think like he's going to be able to wrap this up at least, let's say 7 out of 10 loose threads?
Yeah.
Okay. I would be happy with that.
Look at what they answered this episode. I thought the last episode they dropped a lot of answers, and then this episode it's like, oh, here is the definitive origin of Hooded Justice, who we've been kind of dancing around. Here's a little bit more of the backstory of the Minutemen and how all that's tying in. We now know what those pills do.
Yeah.
We've answered that. We now know what happened to Judd. We have an explanation, as kooky as the science is, for how he killed himself. And I feel like those were like the big questions. It's okay for smaller things to still linger around, but it seems like they're hitting a lot of the big ones. And
Yeah.
what does it say on your notepad?
Well, it says, tell Grant it was a perfect episode. No collusion.
It was a Trump thing.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Are you kidding me? When I saw the giant permanent marker in the other room, I had to use it. No, okay, you're completely right that they have answered a lot of stuff. And I think if we limited this to the 7th Cavalry, okay, and we have this redneck 4chan kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
With Senator Keene. Yeah, that's it right there. You know, and so we have the senator, we have kind of the governmental conspiracy. We've seen that before. I understand that. What I don't know is, what's Lady Trieu doing? What's going on with the statue? What is it called? The Millennium Clock?
Yeah.
What's going on with that? What's going on with Veidt? Okay. What's going on with Manhattan? What's going on with Lori's boyfriend and that fucking owl in her room? Has that thing been fed?
Well,
does she have somebody going over, like on rover.com, to feed the owl? We don't know a ton of stuff. And are we going to see him? Are we going to see Dan?
he's in prison.
Yes. Is she doing this to get him out? Did they say, do a few cases, kind of like a catch-22, do your number of flights and get out? And then they keep bucking her.
He was supposed to be in for 35 years, so he should be out in like 4 years, I think, from then or something like that. I don't know. But did you see...
No, I didn't see the preview for next
95, week. Let me do the math there. No, it's like he's got another like 10 years. Did you see my little post I did about like what Dr. Manhattan was spelling where it said save me D?
Well, we talked about it.
About D being potentially Dan?
Club Med. Yeah, Dan. We talked about that on the show.
Yeah, because he signs his name with a D.
So how would Dan fly Archie up there?
Yeah, through space. Wouldn't that be? They spend a whole episode like Shadow of the Colossus shit,
I
flying Archie there.
Love that. Yeah, it's a little Breath of the Wild. You're just spending 45 minutes running.
What am I watching at this point?
Yeah. By the way, I mean I have been stuck in Star Wars Fallen Order.
Yeah,
the new video game. If anybody can give me some hints, slide into your DMs. I don't know because I'm lost.
People have been sliding into my DMs still as a result of you.
Well, do we have any questions?
And they always say, hey, just slid into your DMs
for real.
For the recommendation.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any user questions pulled up?
I didn't pull anything up. No. Here's a question.
Jesus.
Though. Here's one question from our live feed. Tony Marengo says, "Fellas, what percentage of folks do you think are watching the show on HBO on Sunday? Do you think are fans of the original book?" I would say it's probably a lower percentage.
I'm not joking. 1 to 3%.
Really? I would put it a little higher than that. I'd say maybe like
how many copies did it sell?
5%.
Yeah, okay. It's negligible. I mean,
I would say a lot of people haven't read it, but I would think people are going to pick it up.
How many people have read a fringe comic book from the 1980s? I mean, the answer is like, or versus how many people have watched?
It was a New York Times bestseller. It was a big comic.
Dude, I mean, I'm not denigrating the comic. I just think that that's more of a fringe medium than HBO. When after Game of Thrones, it's Sunday night, you're bored. You're like, I'll just see what's on TV. I'll get on the boob tube.
The boob tube.
People say that.
They shouldn't.
No, I mean, I'm curious to see what he thinks, what other people think, but it just can't be that many. I would like to say 20, 30%, but there's just not that many people who have read it. I mean, Even me, a big comic book fan, right? I hadn't read it until we started doing this.
That's true, but you thought you had.
Yeah.
I feel like
I took some nostalgia and had a few imperfect memories.
It's obviously, it's had its impact.
Yeah.
Enough on other comics that it feels like you've read it. You know the story somewhat. You're familiar a little bit with it.
Question.
Yes.
What's a comic you would like to see done in this manner? Where it's not a remake of the original material, but it's kind of picking up where it left off.
Ooh, rather than redoing it.
And I fully admit that's, and I understand that's a difficult question to answer without giving you time.
I have to remember where Ex Machina ended, but I really liked that story, and I thought that it seemed to be opening up to a much bigger universe of possibilities, like with a pantheon of bad guys for that character.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, why'd that comic end? That's weird.
that
So
would
maybe
be
that'd be one.
that would be a really interesting one, and it would just be cool to see how they translate the kind of colors and stuff and art style onto
Right.
a show.
What would you say?
Man, I mean, obviously, Lucifer was interesting. I would like to see that. They've kind of had I think a Lucifer show, haven't they? I don't know
They
if it's
have.
good. Is it good?
They turned him into a police detective, and they made it like a buddy cop show. Although I heard
Turner and Hooch?
I heard in like the 3rd or 4th season, it gets like much better. Like they changed companies and
but
like they changed a lot of what they were doing.
You've got to suffer through the first few.
If you
Yeah.
want.
Lucifer, I mean, I know you kind of jumped off the bandwagon, but I love Fables. I love the cast of characters.
Yeah, but do you really want them to pick up wherever Fables is like leaving off?
I'll tell you what, yeah. Because they all dispersed into their kingdoms. That was kind of the end of Fabletown or whatever, because they didn't really have any problems in their homelands. They went back to their homeland. So I would actually like to see some kind of vignettes. Do you remember like Matrix did that Matrix Revolutions or Revelations or whatever? Where was these series of vignettes, like cartoons and stuff?
Yeah.
I would like to see kind of a Fables version of that.
Okay.
I know you weren't really a Fables dude. I mean, like, why?
I feel like that's Once Upon a Time in or what's it called? Just Once Upon a Time. And I don't want to see that.
You know what's so funny is that I think if we were off camera right now or off mic, you would freely admit that you like Fables.
I liked Fables a lot. I feel like they've done a couple of TV show adaptations that feel close enough to it, and I wasn't enjoying them.
Okay,
There's
fair.
lost people that moved on to Once Upon a Time. Wasn't
yeah, okay. I didn't have an answer for this ready. I thought it was an interesting question. I would like to hear what other people say. This was just kind of a food for thought moment.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any other notes. I don't know what you have.
I think we're done. I think we've covered this episode. I actually don't really know what episode 7 is going to be. I'm pretty excited in that fact.
Did you watch the preview?
No, I didn't watch the preview this time.
Holy shit.
I know.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what it's going to be. I can tell you what the title is.
Yeah.
The title is An Almost Religious Awe. And I think this is in reference to something Dr. Manhattan said. That was like how he described the Vietnamese looked at him when he intervened. They looked at me with an almost religious awe. So I wonder if this is going to have Dr. Manhattan, or it's going to have the cult of religion that formed in his absence. The people talking in those domes to him, stuff like that. These churches potentially to him. I think they showed like some churches to Dr. Manhattan. So I'm interested to see what this is going to be. They have not even listed a little plot synopsis yet for it, so don't know.
Do you think it's going to be more of a kind of a bottle episode like this one, or will it just kind of go full throttle?
No, I think they'll have to pick back up into like what's going on with the plot.
Yeah.
I don't think they can do 2 in a row of those.
Yeah. Okay, so I know we're wrapping up. Tomorrow we have His Dark Places, awful.
Not going to watch that one.
Friday we have...
I haven't kept up.
Friday we have Mandalorian.
Yes.
Yes. That's a big... Whoa, I hope it's not delayed because of Thanksgiving. Jesus, that'd be awful. We also have High School Musical, the musical, the series.
This is true.
What's on your watch list this week? Anything else? I know it's Thanksgiving, so it's a little bit different.
I think they delayed the Good Place finale until like January. So.
Oh, you mean like series finale?
Yeah.
Okay.
So nothing, I guess, aside from just like The Mandalorian. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Gotta watch that.
Hey, great talking to you.
This is fun. Hey, everyone. Thank you guys for checking out our episode. You can, of course, subscribe to us either on here on YouTube or on any podcasting listening app that you listen to. We should be on all of them. We appreciate all of your support. If you guys want to help.
If we're not on all of them, it's your fault.
I'm dropping the ball.
You're the only one doing this, so it's totally your fault.
Yeah, if you aren't, my bad. But if you guys want to help support us, please go to patreon.com/whopodsthewatchmen and make a per month pledge. We appreciate the support of all of you guys thus far. And we'll be releasing additional Patreon episodes and probably some other midweek recap or like theories or something like that for you to listen to when you're trying to avoid your family during Thanksgiving. It'll be a good time. Until then, we want to thank you guys so much. We will be back again on Sunday to pod more. Who Pods the Watchmen? We do, baby. Is that our sign off?
Holy smokes. Yeah. I really can't say anything else.